call to order. So, welcome. Do we want to do the Pledge of Allegiance, or are we going to skip by that?
Well, it's not in the agenda, but
Yeah, that's right. It wasn't in the agenda. Okay.
I mean,
Well,
maybe if you guys want to, next meeting, I'm more than happy to put it in. And
all right. Sounds good. We'll have that for next meeting. We'll get even more normal.
Okay.
All right. So, just want to read a brief statement. The Chair's statement on remote participation. The Governor's executive order has suspended remote participation requirements in a few cases, so that allows us to do remote meetings and votes via roll call in the school committee meeting. So now let's move on to approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion for approval of the agenda, please?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All right. All those in favor with a roll call vote. Sean Nicholson, aye.
Dorothy Skelly, aye.
Carrie Lawrence, aye.
Lee Martin, aye. Lee Martin, aye.
Vicki Ludwigson, aye.
All right. I got everybody. Good. All right. So unanimously approved. Now we move on to a motion to approve the minutes of the open session of March 23rd, 2020. Can I have a motion for that?
Motion to approve the open session minutes of March 23rd, 2020.
Second.
All right. Vote with a roll call. Sean Nicholson, aye.
Dorothy Skelly, aye.
Carrie Lawrence, aye.
Zetter, aye.
Lee Martin, aye.
Vicki Ludwigson, aye.
All right, very good. Then moving on, both approved unanimously. Moving on to the superintendent's comments. Joe?
Actually, is Owen Brigham present?
Joe, I just sent him the new link by email.
Okay, and did you send him the password included?
I got in without a password, but
okay, so hopefully he has that. Okay, we can always add him on. Owen
445-658.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, I'll do it.
Owen reached out to me over the weekend, late last week, and even though we don't have him in the agenda, it would be wonderful if at some point, hopefully Owen will pop in and you can just make an amendment to the agenda, because he kind of wants to share a student's perspective with regard to this whole remote virtual learning piece. So I thought it'd be really valuable to hear from Owen. Okay.
Yeah, he is.
Okay, seeing Owen in there.
He's there.
Oh, is he?
Owen, go ahead. We'll make an amendment to the agenda.
He's got to be unmuted.
Yeah, you're muted, Owen.
Can you hear me now?
There you go. God,
Yay.
you can put on a jacket and a shirt.
Don't worry, I'm wearing sweatpants too.
The official uniform of Zoom from home.
I got to be honest, Owen. I'm wearing my running shorts. See, I'll even see.
Nice.
Wait out.
All right. So hello, and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to present tonight. Thanks also for all that you're doing to make it possible for us to learn despite these difficult times. I'm usually here to update you on NITMA current and upcoming events, but given the circumstances, I'm here to provide you with insight into what it is like to be a student right now. Many of my peers are reporting that they are struggling to maintain a sleep schedule. Given the first few weeks, many kids were staying up late and getting up late. Getting back into a more structured routine has been difficult for some. This hasn't really been a case for me because my family worked hard to maintain a looser but reasonable schedule with some structure. So that's been pretty helpful with the transition back. In terms of learning through Zoom, I'm having a little bit of a harder time taking in all that information than I would in a traditional environment. But what definitely helps is taking notes throughout the course of the Zoom, just so I can take it all in and look back on it when it's over. And it really just helps in the, in the absence of a traditional learning environment. Yeah, no, it's just kind of something that we're not accustomed to, because we're so used for the last, at least for me, for the last 11, 12-ish years, I've been learning in a classroom, which is, we kind of mentally register as like where we learn, whereas now we're learning in the place where we sleep or, relax, which is a tough transition. All right. One of the drawbacks of Zoom is it is not great for generating classroom discussion, or at least that's what I have found so far. I usually don't have any worries about speaking publicly, but it really just makes every contribution feel like a presentation because like the whole class is just kind of staring directly like at the speaker, which is, you just have to work around it, but at the same time, it's just difficult for some of us. So the teachers have been incredibly helpful. They've been quickly answering emails. A lot of teachers have been working hard to give us structure, student choice, creative projects, and right now meaningful review as well. This is especially true for my AP classes that I'm taking right now. Office hours have been insanely helpful, just in clarification on some assignments. In my AP classes, we've been doing a lot of review for the upcoming AP tests, whether that be going back and watching some of the videos that were posted for review earlier in the year, or just doing activities to just practice and just really give us an opportunity to take in the material in a meaningful way, which I really appreciate. So thus far, the workload has been pretty manageable. My teachers are introducing new concepts as of this week. Previously, it was just review. My pre-calc teacher in particular has been using the app Show Me, which I'm not sure if some of you have heard of. It is really good for grasping new concepts because it kind of provides us with a video in which we can, it's like looking at a whiteboard and we receive instruction at the same time. Very good if you're taking notes. But to say the least, all the teachers are trying new strategies right now as we kind of learn through this new format. Definitely, I would have to say the worst part of this, I don't experience this personally, but for the seniors, definitely. They're missing their last sports seasons, prom, etc. We all miss our friends and teachers, and I just feel bad for the senior class right now. They're missing out on a lot. And again, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. I really appreciate you guys giving me the chance to share my experience and learning from home. So thank you.
Thanks, Owen.
Thanks, Owen.
Thanks, Owen.
Oh, and
Yeah,
that was,
thanks for the insights about learning, Owen. That's really important.
Well, thank you very much. I try.
nice job.
Yes, okay. So the next is the superintendent's comments now, Joe.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Thank you, everybody, and thank you for our guests that are here now. What I'm going to do really briefly is I'm going to go over, first and foremost, what we're looking at with regard to the MURSD remote learning plan, which we went into effect today, April 6th. I had the opportunity last week on Friday to first do a town hall for our staff, and then we had a town hall Saturday morning for our parents. We had approximately 200 people in attendance Saturday morning, which was terrific, and had a lot of wonderful questions because there's a lot of specifics in this to drill down. So what I'm going to do is, just so you can see this and we're not in my conference room or the PDC, I'm going to share my screen with all of you, and I'll just walk you through some of the slides that I've put together, which could just kind of guide my thinking. But as all of you know, I'm just going to minimize you, is the rationale behind us putting together a plan really comes down to the necessity that, unlike where we were 2 weeks ago, where we just had that initial 3-week closure, due to this crisis, the governor has called for an additional 4 school weeks through May 4th. But as we've talked about in the past, in looking at the trajectory of this virus and how it's playing out, we have to prepare for the reality that it's quite plausible that our closure will extend well beyond May 4th, and conceivably this might be the way that we end the school year. So with that in mind, the conversation that we had a couple weeks ago around just providing opportunities and practice to kind of keep things current for our kids, I think we have to pivot. And part of that pivot has to be providing instruction and some type of services to our students, and in providing instruction also being able to progress in the curriculum. And I say that with the obvious knowledge that the Mendon Upton Regional School District is based upon 4 schools that are bricks and mortar, and it's based upon face-to-face teaching and learning. And we're on the fly shifting to a virtual environment. And, I say that knowing that there's going to be some distinction in how we can progress strictly in a virtual environment. So the plan, as we've rolled out, like I said, went into effect today, and really the philosophical underpinning of it is trying to strike a balance, because again, we're fully cognizant that we have a multitude of situations, a multitude of things happening in our homes. So we're trying to balance some real-time face-to-face interactions between our teachers and their students, but again, kind of a hallmark of virtual learning, that asynchronous learning, those asynchronous opportunities for our students. And again, the second balance is between being flexible and knowing, again, that our parents have all different types of circumstances happening, particularly for our younger students, our elementary grade students, where they might have parents working from home, they might be under the care of a caregiver, and so on. But also knowing that, almost as Owen alluded to, the need for having some type of structure, some type of modicum of scheduling happening. So the key piece here, and we got feedback over the last 3 weeks about levels of engagement, and it varied. But the key thing is, if we are to continue our operations as a public school district, student engagement cannot be optional, and participation cannot be optional. And we've tried to be very, very thoughtful about this, but we see the accountability piece based upon submission of work, and not necessarily saying, hey, you've got to attend 100% of all face-to-face remote learning sessions. Again, having that flexibility piece. So I shared with you in your packet the commissioner's recommendations that came out, I believe it was early last week, or it might have been the week before, towards the end of the week. And this is kind of in keeping kind of with a national conversation regarding student work. And because we're dealing with a multitude of circumstances and situations, the mindset is to move away from a grading environment in virtual learning, with assessing work with a credit, no credit, or resubmit for a credit designation. But in every case, our teachers giving high quality feedback to our students based upon their work. And obviously going along with that would be, in giving a basic assignment, sharing some type of rubric or some type of scoring criteria that would be very, very specific in detailing the quality of work that's necessary for credit. So again, the accountability piece will be through the submission of work on a satisfactory basis. So our initial thinking was this, and again, if there's one word that I want to stress, it's flexibility. We were thinking at the secondary level, so specifically at MISCO and NIPMUC, having all grades for these days, for terms 3 and 4, to be strictly on a pass-fail basis. The original end date for term 3 was this past Friday, April 3rd, but we're looking to extend that to April 17th. I should say, and again, things being flexible and things evolving, I know John and Marianne are working very, very hard to hear all points of view with regard to term 3. During my town hall on Saturday, there was some questions regarding, well, gee, you know, term 3, the kids had a certain amount of grades. There was a degree of concern, particularly from juniors who are already thinking about the college application process and so on. Why can't we have, you know, our regular numeric grades for term 3? I think John and Marianne are exploring all options right now. I know they had a terrific meeting with their counseling staff today. So again, I think we're looking for ongoing feedback. And again, if we need to make changes in our plan, we certainly will. I think also initially in our plan was the mindset of third trimester at the elementary grades. As you know, we have the standards-based report card, which has a grading rubric based upon 1 to 4, 1 being not meeting a standard, 4 meeting the standard with honors or beyond the standard, where 2 and 3 would be approaching the standard and meeting the standard respectively. So the mindset was for third trimester, featuring grades and all the standards of 2, 3, or NA being not assessed. Again, I think we're looking at that. We're trying to get feedback from all our stakeholders of what the most viable option is and what makes the most sense for our students, for our families, and also our staff as well. So a few other considerations that are key in our plan that I think merit some discussion is I've taken a lot of questions from parents of students with IEPs and some English language learners. The mindset is that we will provide services to the best of our abilities, and in many cases, particularly with students with mild to moderate disabilities, we still can provide those services in a virtual setting. Whether it is an inclusion special educator, some of our related service providers, such as speech language therapists and occupational therapists, they are proceeding in reaching out to their students and their families to provide the services that they do. I think we're also looking at, within the coming week or so, to continue IEP team meetings, however, doing them, again, obviously through Zoom or some type of virtual setting. Most of them, in all likelihood, will be our annual reviews for the basic reason that doing either new team meetings for a new IEP or a 3-year reval, we're going to have some distinct limitations with regard to testing of students. Again, I want to stress the whole thing around balance but flexibility. It's part of our game plan to, in short order, within the next week to 2 weeks, to reach out to all of our stakeholders, probably at the secondary level to our students, to our staff, and to all of our families, to survey what is working and what is not working. And again, I hope it doesn't come to this case, but I am looking at this plan in the context of thinking this conceivably will be the way that we finish the school year. So we're talking in total, I believe, about 10 more school weeks. So we're going to have to be flexible and adapt as needed. And again, the point around surveying all stakeholders, I think, is extremely important. So again, I've asked all of our staff at the secondary level to map out their assignments, their work in advance by Monday morning, 9 a.m. I know our elementary teachers are doing an exemplary job in kind of sending out something like a table or a grid to the families that kind of shows the different content areas and different work that they'll be assigning and different resources and so on. But the key, and I think we could have a great discussion about this, is having something that is a reasonable workload that's developmentally appropriate, you know, and thinking about Owen, you know, at the high school where he's taking AP classes and so on, that is a completely different situation than thinking about, you know, our kindergarten teachers or first grade teachers, and how much is doable in a virtual environment, and some of the challenges in, you know, working with younger children, and think about the whole notion of being able to attend and so on, and also the load that it is on our parents as well. So particularly of the little ones. So again, there's a lot of considerations here, and we are trying our absolute best to work with our families. As I said during our town hall, we will be issuing further guidance, particularly with regard to assessment and grading. I think particularly for our high school students and our high school families, there's a lot of questions of like, how's it exactly going to work with regard to melding a pass-fail system with, you know, numeric grades, and what are the implications for GPA and class rank and things like that. So we will have further guidance on that. And again, this probably should be the last bullet point, but it's not. But again, being able to be flexible and adapt this plan is something that I think is going to be absolutely critical to our success moving forward. I have got to give a lot of credit to Maureen, our assistant superintendent. She, again, has been doing a yeoman's job in updating all of the information, and all of the information about the plan is on MURSD now, no longer extended, now MURSDremote.com. And we've got a lot of our FAQs there, and we also have a Google form that anybody could fill out if they have some additional questions. But again, as we discussed 2 weeks ago, and then before that 3 weeks ago, when we started this journey with trying to move our operation to a virtual space, it's really about 3 core values that are part of our strategic plan, that are part of our district, that are really driving our policies, our practices, and our procedures in this remote learning piece. That first and foremost, our families and our community come first in our considerations. Yes, progressing the curriculum is extremely important, and trying to get our kids to continue achieving at high levels is also extremely important. But it really pales in comparison, particularly during this time of crisis, for what is happening in our community and what's happening in our students' families. And we always want to be very empathetic to that. And again, dovetailing from that is the whole notion that the foundational piece of our success is in the relationships between our staff and our students. That is equally sacred. And then the third core value, again, is continuing to reach out to our families, reaching out to our students to support them, to support their academic progress, but also to support their social emotional progress. So that's really what is driving our plan. I believe also in the packet I shared with you the actual plan. Again, I see that document as a dynamic document. It's subject to change, but again, in a very, very short order, we had a real need to get something out first to our staff and then to our families as well. So if I know that's kind of a lot in a very short period of time, but if you have any specific questions about the plan, I'd be more than happy to answer them right now.
I had a question about the surveys. So I'm really happy to hear that that the students and the staff will be surveyed. And I was just wondering, like, will you be sharing those results with?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So I got, I would say, considerably positive feedback about doing the town halls. I will continue to do those probably on Saturday mornings. And I think the district has been fairly effective in getting the word out so that, you know, all parents will be able to access the survey, but then in the same manner, we will be able to get the results out to you as well. So it's my game plan that I believe our next school committee meeting is 3 weeks from tonight. And I'm sure we'll have something within 3 weeks to share as concrete data for you.
Great.
So just a note from me, I think what you've covered so far, Joe, it pretty clearly, it accurately reflects what I've been hearing as well, both from the high school experience, trying to understand how they're going to get qualifications for college in sophomore and junior year, and also in the burden that it puts on some families for getting all of their kids to keep up with the school work when they're confined at home. I think that those two, it's almost like it's a broad range of problems that our families are having in the community. So so I think you nailed it as far as describing that. So now the challenge is just going to be trying to adapt to all those different situations.
Sure. And, you know, I've had some families reach out to me with regard to concerns about devices and number of devices. And, you know, it's been a multitude. You know, we've done a few all calls, you know, as we discussed a couple weeks ago. We've done some all calls where we know, particularly at the elementary level, you know, we feel very confident, obviously, because we've been one-to-one grades 5 through 12, that every student has a device, at least one device that is theirs. So our big concern has been at the elementary level, and in total, Dave Quinn has given out about 35 to 40 devices and another about dozen hotspots, mobile hotspots, over homes that there was concerns that they did not have high-speed internet. I've been getting a trickle of concerns, again, predominantly at the elementary level, where the concern is in the milieu of, well, I have a device with I have a laptop with a camera, but realize I'm a working professional and I'm working all day, and my kid can't hop on it, you know, to have their morning meeting with their teacher or whatever. So, you know, I understand that, and I think, you know, the district does have some more devices, and, you know, we can work creatively with families. I give, again, Dave Quinn a ton of credit because he literally has been calling homes, going to homes, doing home delivery of devices and spots and so on. The tech crew has been fabulous. But I also think we have to, again, that's why part of the plan is not all strictly dependent upon attendance in live sessions. Do we want our kids there? Absolutely. But I think we also have to think about recording sessions so that, you know, I had an exchange with a mom who told me, well, you know, my husband and I are working nonstop, and maybe we're not going to be able to work with the kids until 5 o'clock. All right, I get it. That's an enormous challenge. But if we have the actual recording of what was done between the teacher and the kids, then again, that's part of that asynchronous piece that is part of the solution. And again, this is, I will say up front, and the person I am and the professional, hopefully that I am, I don't like saying, hey, guess what, guys? I have an imperfect plan here. But it is, you know, it's an imperfect plan. It really is. And again, you're trying to look at a wide swath of all of our stakeholders and all the different circumstances and the stressors and the pressures that everybody's dealing with. And you're trying to come up with something that's fair and equitable for all of our stakeholders.
Yep, understood. Understood. Any further comments or questions from the school committee? All right, so let's move on. We've got the state guidance on financial commitments and contracted services.
Sure. This is also extremely important as well because again, there's a lot of implications as far as the finances with regard to our financial commitments. And as I mentioned in the background memo, one of the key ones, and I've gotten some questions regarding this, is transportation. So Jay has had the joy of quite a few Zoom calls with regard to the Office of School Finance of DESE. So Jay, if you could touch upon some of the guidance regarding transportation and also contracted services that's been shared.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Joe. Hi, everybody. I hope you're doing well tonight. Yeah, I've had multiple calls. I probably have at least 3 a week with the Department of Ed on finances. It seems to be a regular occurrence. And the common theme we get is that there's a lot of questions and not a lot of answers. He uses the term stay tuned quite frequently. So when it comes to the buses, though, we're up against two things. You know, the good in us wants to make sure that bus drivers are paid and that companies don't go out of business because of loss of income. But we have Chapter 41, Section 56 of the Mass General Law that says you can't pay for contracted services if you haven't received them. So the Department of Ed has reached out to the Department of Revenue to ask for some guidance on that. It hasn't, as of today, this afternoon when we had our call, don't have an answer yet, but that's one of the things they're trying to clear up. But what was suggested through the Department of Revenue was, why don't all of you who use a specific vendor, for us it's Telstone, which would be Douglas, BMR, and ourselves, get together and negotiate an amendment to your contract that offers some form of payment, partial payment for your contract, so that you can then pay them and keep them solvent. So I participated in sessions with BMR and Douglas to determine what we're doing with Telstone and see if we can come up with a concept. I actually talked to Neil Telstone as well today. I also participated in sessions with the people that use Vendetti, which for us is a very small cost because it's just the Norfolk Aggie run. So it's, you know, $16,000 a year. So there's a big difference between the two, but we're trying to figure out a way to pay them something, certainly not maybe 100%, but something that keeps them solvent, you know, on the condition that their drivers are working and getting paid, and we're going to ask for payroll records to verify that. But something to keep them solvent, because quite honestly, a lot of these companies like Telstone, if they don't get 4 months of income, they're probably out of business. They've got lease payments on their buses, they've got insurance, they've got drivers, they've got a lot of things. And one of the things that's come up is this time going into the spring is kind of their money-making time. It's not part of the contract, but this is when they do field trips in all the school districts, and there's a lot of athletic stuff that goes on. They make a lot of money on those side parts of the contract that aren't the main thing. So we've got to figure that out. We don't really have a solution yet, but we're talking to them about it. So that's where we're at with transportation. But if it turns out state law says, you know what, we don't care what you do, you can't pay it, then we're going to have to not pay it. The other thing I did read is that part of the stimulus package says that if you want to get any part of the stimulus package, you have to pay your contracted services. Otherwise, we won't even allow you to get anything. But it's all based on Title I as far as your qualifications. So the financial, the evil side of me who thinks only about money says, well, I could save $500,000 and I'm probably only going to get $70,000 from Title I qualification through this, through the stimulus package. Maybe I should keep the money. But the good person in me, which I trend to, I've got one on each shoulder, right? I try to think the good guy on me is saying, hey, do the right thing. Don't just think about money. So we're working that out. As far as other contractors, specifically, it's mostly special ed, OT, PT, some of the contracted services that come into our buildings. And I know Dennis is here, and I'll let him address it more specifically, but I think the guidance we've gotten is find something for them to do that provides instruction the best they can, and then at least you can pay them for the hours they're working for you. And that's about the best we can do there. Unfortunately, we can't just pay them and have them do absolutely nothing, just like we're not paying anybody else to do nothing. They're all doing something. Dennis, you want to weigh in on how you're kind of handling some of those services?
Sure. Thanks, Jay. So we do have contracted employees, and they are following the remote learning plan, just like our special ed teachers and general ed teachers and other providers are. So they are reading services, and as Jay mentioned, PT and OT and speech services. So those contracted employees will be getting paid.
All right. So, we're kind of balancing it out. Like I said earlier, I kind of feel like, I think it was the Flintstones cartoon when you had the great Gazoo who was on one shoulder, and one had all the bad things and one had all the good things. And I'm trying to balance the two of them out. But, ultimately, I want to try to keep all these companies solvent as best we can because we need them. Quite honestly, were Telstone to go out of business, we wouldn't have a bus contractor if we come back to school. And there are, we complain a lot about lack of competition, but there's not enough of them out there. So we have to fight over that. And, it's in our best interest to try and work something out with them. So that's what we're working on. And any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Wow. I'm sure I have questions. I'm just trying to grasp everything that you just told us. So in the situation where, okay, so let me ask you hypothetically, one question came into my mind. Is there anything that has a provision in the state for preserving the business by having the business take loans or some sort of guaranteed loans so that they can stay in business?
Well, I think all of these companies, they're all private contractors. They're all eligible for any of the stimulus package type incentives that there are for them to get loans. And that's part of the challenge is you don't want to pay them and then have them go and get something backfilled through the stimulus package and end up actually coming out better, right? And quite honestly, the message I have sent is as much as I want to help these people out, everybody in the world is losing something right now. I mean, we're spending money. People are out of work. People are, have been laid off. Everybody's taking a hit in this, and they're not exempt to it. They're going to have to take a hit as well. We want to help them as best we can, but, we can only do so much because we've got to protect our own financial interests as well. Because we've got some real challenges coming up that aren't related to this, but we'll probably get to them at some point.
Okay, understood. A lot of questions there.
Yeah, it's an awful lot to take in, to say the least. And it isn't as, I'm really appreciative that Jay kind of explained it like that, because it's not as simple as just saying, oh, there's no busing going on. There's no busing service. So therefore, let's pull the cord on that, and that's not going to happen. It's not quite that simple. There's a lot more nuances there.
Here's a question I do have, and we'll just take the busing component of it. So take Hopedale, for example, that has their own busing
Yep.
company, whatever you want to call it, capability. How is that all being funded through the Chapter 70 funding and the other things they're getting from
No, so if you recall, Phil, the only reason we get some funding is because we're a regional school district.
Yeah.
So Hopedale, like most municipalities, they actually charge their families a busing fee.
Mm-hmm.
So their unique challenge right now is, yes, they are saving money. It depends on, what they're doing with their drivers, whether they chose to lay them off or not. But I think one of their other challenges is going to be, are they refunding any portion or not refunding the fees that they collect for that service?
But in addition to that, Phil, they, as a town, they either lease or own their own buses, and the drivers are employees of the school district. So that's part of their operational cost. Now, how that factors into what they get for Chapter 70, I don't know. Transportation is kind of one of those iffy things, but that's just one of their operational expenses. Just like for us, we have an operational expense to pay a contractor to do our bus services.
Understood. Thank you.
All right. Well, I guess all I can say is just please keep us apprised of what's going on with that, because that seems like a tough nut to crack.
Yeah, it's been enjoyable having these conversations.
Okay. The next thing in my report, which is also important, but ultimately it's the decision of the school committee, seeing that you are the keepers of the calendar. But something that's come up in the district, but it's been a statewide issue, is the whole issue of Good Friday, your favorite topic, Phil, and April vacation. And we've got both already built in the 1920 calendar. And it's my recommendation, and it's been pretty much consistent across the Blackstone Valley, and it's probably right now about a 70-30 split across the Commonwealth, to actually take the April vacation along with Good Friday, which is this Friday. And the pros and cons of it, and there are the districts that are working through April vacation are doing it in the sense of, well, everybody's going to be home anyway, and let's build momentum in what we're trying to accomplish online and so on. And I completely understand that mindset. However, I kind of look at it a little bit differently. I look at it from the perspective of, I've gotten a lot of feedback about people just kind of being fatigued, and moving to a virtual environment is a different type of fatigue versus, wow, I've been in school for 8 hours today and it was a long day with kids and so on. So I think 2 or 3 things. I think the break will be welcomed probably by most stakeholders. Secondly, going back to that surveying piece, if we can use that week to get some valuable feedback, and if we need to retool on week number 3, we've got that natural break. And I'll go glass half full and being optimistic that, say, perchance we could get in maybe around June 1st and so on. That would actually give us more time physically face-to-face with our kids. So for those reasons, it's my recommendation to keep things status quo with regard to the already approved 2019-2020 calendar. I don't know if the committee wants to have a discussion about it and so on, but I've had extensive conversations with many stakeholders within the district, and also all of our neighboring superintendents, and that, for the most part, is the consensus viewpoint, which I just represented to you.
I mean, for my part, I like your logic. I think that's very sound. And having the ability to get back in touch with the kids at the school at the end of the year would be fantastic if it comes to that. That would be wonderful.
Yeah, and some districts have said, well, our last day is the 22nd, and we'd prefer it to be the 15th, so we could end this virtual thing sooner. Not exactly a glass half full kind of mentality, but it would, in the event that we, and I've had many conversations where people said, it would be really, it would be great if we had a week or 2 weeks with the kids and somehow we could come together and there could be some type of closure. Now, again, I think we could debate it all night whether or not that's going to happen, but we'll see.
When are you going to get the survey results? Is that going to be actionable by next week?
I'm thinking probably we'll put something out by midweek next week. And that way we would have something. And again, it would be a short survey window of probably about 72 hours. And we would really promote it very, very heavily so that at a minimum by the start of vacation week, we would have something in our hands, quantifiable and actionable. And realize we're already starting to get feedback from all stakeholders, even before we started the plan today. And I think we are very seriously and very actively looking at different components, and particularly components around assessment and grading and so on.
It sounds like a good plan. I agree with what you're saying.
Thank you. And I think the last item, per usual, this is something that doesn't change, even the virtual environment. You should have in your packet the FY20 operational budget year-to-date expenditure report. Jay, do you have anything that you wish to highlight?
Yeah, it's been really calm and quiet. There's not a lot going on. Now, as far as the budget goes, the only thing I can fill you in on is we are, in essence, putting a freeze on all ordering of any instructional supplies because, quite honestly, I don't see the point at this point unless it's related to online learning, in which case we will do what we have to do. I think we're going to realize a little bit of a savings there, not a lot, a little bit. Like I talked about earlier in relation to the bus, one of the things we're probably looking at negotiating is if there's a savings to us, we might push that savings into next year instead of this year, because quite honestly, we have the budget this year. Next year is still a big unknown. So one way or the other, we want to try and make it so that we can get the impact for anything we save into next year's budget to offset what we're projecting to be probably a reduction on state aid and some real difficulties going ahead. But as far as this year goes, we're doing fine right now.
Phil, do you want to put any pressure on Jay for the snow removal budget?
I actually put a cold freeze on. I told Ken 3 weeks when we first closed that I didn't care if we got 2 feet of snow. We're not moving a drop of it. Just let it melt.
I think Jay's got it handled.
So I can honestly tell you we will not spend any more on snow removal this year.
All right, very good.
I know that's the highlight of the reports, and I don't want to leave that out, but
I mean, hey, there's a silver lining somewhere, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
All right. Any further questions? Otherwise, we'll move on. Okay, moving on to new business. Nipmuc Senior Capstone presentation by the co-principals, John Clements and Marianne Moran.
I think what we're going to do is we're going to table that item for this evening. I think there was an active exploration around looking at senior capstone, but I think because of some logistic concerns and so on, I think John and Marianne are looking to conceivably launch that in, more normal circumstances, so to speak.
All right, very good. So is that, was the agenda item for the questions and discussion about the capstone project, Joe, or is it general?
No, it's just general. I think we kind of did it organically through every item, but I just included that in new business if there were any other outstanding issues or questions from the committee.
So why don't we do that the same way we did it last time then? Outstanding questions from the committee first, and then we'll open it up to the community comments. Any questions from the committee on the subjects that have been covered tonight?
I have a question. Is there any word about the Mcats status for this year?
So unfortunately, Massachusetts seems to be dragging its feet a little bit, but I've been told and I've been assured that it's pretty much a done deal that there will be a moratorium on MCAS for this year. So if you recall, 2 things need to happen. We need to get a waiver from the feds. So the Secretary of Education issued a waiver a couple weeks ago and Massachusetts has applied for it. But
Okay.
the second piece is the legislature actually has to vote to put the moratorium on, because MCAS is codified into state law. And I know in Governor Baker's plan, it's actually part of it. So I do.
Okay.
It's pretty much been told to me it's inevitable.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? All right, seeing none, why don't we open this up to community comments? Any community comments? I don't see any raised hands.
Or just raise your hand, or you should have the ability. I think Beth is raising her hand. Beth, you can speak now, Beth. Beth, are you there?
Yes, I am. Sorry, I couldn't figure out how to unmute myself.
I just unmuted you. It's all good.
So hi, I'm Beth. I have 2 young kids, one in 1st grade and 3rd grade at Clough. And I just want to say the teachers are doing an amazing job. It was an interesting day today with the virtual learning, but we made it through with a few tears, but not too many. I was actually on your call on Saturday morning, Dr. Marushek, and I was the one questioning about April vacation. Hashtag stay flexible.
Yeah, nice job.
So just my question about April vacation. I work from home. My husband works from home. We're both full-time. At this point, it's Groundhog's Day, day in and day out. So I'm like, let's just roll with this. Let's just keep going. I get needing the break, and I really hope that we do go back to school in June so the kids can see their friends again and see their teachers again. And it would be nice if they could have just, a few weeks to be able to go to school and not be cut short. But like I said, it's like Groundhog's Day for me. So I rather just have them keep going. But I'm wondering, rather than just getting rid of April vacation altogether, is there any way we can maybe build in that we have Wednesdays off? So that way the kids have school a couple days, have a break day so everyone can breathe, teachers included, and then go back a few more days and have the weekend. That way you still get time off and you don't have to, it doesn't get chopped off at the end.
So Beth, you're asking if we can have Wednesdays off for the remainder of the year. Is that the idea?
Well, something, or 5 Wednesdays in a row. Yeah, because there's 5 days a week. So yeah, 5 Wednesdays in a row. I mean, hopefully we'll be back to school sooner rather than later, but just so that we can keep going. I know like the last couple weeks, it kind of felt more vacation-y because my kids and I did stuff together in terms of schoolwork, but it was optional. Now that it's required, obviously we're buckled down a little bit more and have more of a routine than we did the past 2 weeks. So I kind of feel like the kids have been on vacation a little bit. And it's definitely much easier to have a nice routine. I think that nice gentleman from Nipmuc said the same thing about, having that routine it was tough for his friends to get back into the swing of things. And it's like, all right, so let's ramp up and then, let's take a whole week off. And like I said, and I get everyone's different. I'm lucky that I work from home and that I can take a few hours out of my day and sit down with my kids and work with them. So I'm a little unique in my abilities to work from home, and it's not for everybody, but I'm just wondering if there's any thoughts to taking away April vacation, but giving it back in a different way.
Well, the one thing that does occur to me is that, Joe, that takes away your ability to retool if you have any feedback after next week.
It makes it more challenging. Yes, that's correct.
So that's the kids, Beth.
You can hear them in the background, right?
Yep.
At least they're behaving right now. I gotta say, they've made forts. They've taken the iPads into the forts, and they're behaving. So that's a good thing.
I don't know. I mean, not knowing what the complications are of doing something like that, or what the trade-offs would be. Is that something? Is that something you can consider, Joe? And maybe.
I think we can discuss it, and I think as the committee, again, you guys are technically the keeper of the calendar take it under advisement, and it can be discussed a little bit further.
Any other comments from the committee? Well, thank you, Beth. That's a very good consideration. We'll take that under advisement.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions from the community?
Oh, Carolyn. Carolyn, you are oh, wait a minute. One second, Carolyn. You should be unmuted now, Carolyn. Carolyn. Hello, Carolyn. Your hands is up. Carolyn, you're unmuted. Do we have a Carolyn? Bueller? Bueller? Oh, okay. Carolyn, you know what you could do, if you can hear me, because Carolyn's saying in the chat that her computer's not working, you could probably type a question or a comment or something to that effect if you can hear me and process everything. Oh, Diane Duncan. In the interim, we can hear from Diane Duncan. What do you think of that?
Hi, guys. Can
Oh,
you
there
hear
is
me?
a question here from Carolyn.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, Diane, please stay on the line. Carolyn is saying the staff have been working nonstop, so I think they need a break. I think that's in response to the April break comment, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, Diane?
So I just had a quick comment. I tried to join in on Jen and Paul's Zoom meeting from 4 to 5 today.
Sure.
I hopped on at about 4:05.
Yeah.
And I wasn't able to join because they had more than 100 participants. I didn't know if you received any feedback about that.
I actually hopped on Mendon Upton Moms and Dads, and I saw a whole long thread about it, and I actually piped in. Yeah, that's really, really unfortunate. The district account has a max of 100. However, my account has a max of 700. So what I will make sure if there's ever a school-wide meeting that whoever the is running it will just run off my account. That way it can accommodate everybody.
Joe, if I could chime in here too. When I saw those comments online about how people couldn't get into that session, I reached out to Joe Lakeview to ask if it would be possible to maybe upgrade our principal accounts. And so he's working on that right now, and I'm going to be reaching out to them tonight. That way that doesn't happen again.
I actually had the same experience, and I did not see the comments because I don't go on there, but why
not?
I was going to reach out to Paul and Jen to ask if the session had been recorded, which it sounds like it probably hasn't been. Oh, well, okay, so can we just share the link?
Yeah. Vicki, I'm on. It's Jen. How are you?
Oh, hi.
And Diane, we were trying to keep the riffraff out, so.
I totally get it. I felt very blocked.
So we did record it, and Raphael's going to send the link to the recording to all the parents.
Okay, great.
And then we'll hold another one. We'll do it every Monday from 4 to 5, so people can join in, and we'll do more if we need to.
Joe, if I could chime in, I thought that the account we had with the district was something that John had set up. I don't know if he's on this, but I think we increased it to 500 already.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure. Mary Ann might know. I know her. I see her name, but I don't know.
Yeah, I know my personal account is 700.
Yeah, I thought we would increase the district one to 500, but John is there. I see his name, and he's unmuted, so let him say something.
Yeah, so at Nipmuc, we now have the expanded account, so I think we also can get up to 700 parents.
Yeah, That's accurate. Yeah.
So can I just quickly echo what Beth Devericks was saying? So I know that this is under discussion and the school committee will kind of listen, but I have heard that, and this is just a very general comment about administrators and teachers, not just in the MERSD, but in other districts as well, have been working harder, longer, and differently for an extended period of time. And I completely can appreciate why they're feeling it. And I thought that Beth's suggestion, because learning virtually, I think is challenging in different ways than, being on site. And I thought that was a really great suggestion. It's something kind of thinking outside the box, but it would give teachers and administrators, hopefully, a little bit of a break from the virtual world once a week. So I just wanted to chime that in.
Thanks, Diane.
No problem.
Do we have any other comments from the community? This is like the most comments we've gotten in 3 years.
Well, if you recall, it was about 5 years ago on March 9th when we had the open budget hearing.
Oh,
We actually had quite a few that night.
that's true.
But I know that was a real long time ago, right? Before you had kids or anything,
All right, I'm just going to wait a moment more if I see any other questions coming through. I don't see any right now. All right, let's move on. Any correspondence this week?
We have none.
All right, other matters not anticipated by the committee within 48 hours of the posted meeting. Anybody have any? None. Then I want to mention future agenda items, updates relative to the MERSD remote learning program, April 27th, and then updates relative to graduation, end of year celebrations, etc. on April 27th as well. Next meeting is 3 weeks away, as you said, Joe. I don't know the date there, but April
27th.
27th. Very good. All right. So at this time, we're going to roll call to executive session pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A, exemption number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to the memorandum of agreement with the MRTA, because doing so in open meeting would have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the committee. The committee will not return to open session. We're going to do this by going to a separate Zoom. So thank you all for attending. The school committee is going to go
Roll
to
call.
session now. Oh yeah,
Roll call vote.
need the. Thank you, Lee.
You're welcome.
That's
You might actually need a motion.
okay. Roll call vote. Sean Nicholson, aye.
Dorothy Scully,
We
aye.
need a motion. We need a motion to do the vote. Well, I just did the motion. I'm sorry. Sean Nicholson, aye.
Bill Desutter, aye.
Vicky
Carrie.
Hudson, aye, and I'll also second the motion in case we need that.
Carrie Lawrence, aye.
Lee Martin, aye.
Dorothy Scully, aye.
Okay. Given that we've all voted aye, it's unanimous, and we will go to executive session. Thank you, everyone.